Well, hello everyone. This is Robin Carter with Robin's Creations out of Flower Mound, Texas. And today I'm here to share my second set of alternative cards using the July 2024 paper pumpkin kit named Painted Petals. Before we begin, let me thank all of my subscribers out there. Thank you so much for your support and welcome back. I hope you find lots of tips and good alternatives in this video as well. And if you're brand new to my channel, thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this video as well. If you are new, I'd like to leave a comment of where you're watching from, and if you could be so kind as to subscribe to my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. So today, Tuesday, July 23rd, is free shipping day with Stampin' Up. So there's only a few hours left, but it does go until 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time. So don't miss out on any goodies you may have on your list. I'm going to share some here that may interest you. And I also want to share with you how the Paper Pumpkin subscription works. So let's go ahead and switch to hands down so I can explain that and show you a sheet I have. I explained this in my first video. I was a little rushed because I knew I had a lot of cards to share, but I'm going to try to make sure I'm clear on this video. So free shipping day is my very favorite time, well, one, to get just general things on my shopping list because that's 11% savings. But my very favorite thing to get during that are the prepaid Paper Pumpkin subscriptions. So like I said, it's free shipping is only today. It's usually a one-day thing. And how a prepaid Paper Pumpkin subscription works is you can choose either 3 months prepaid, 6, or 12. And those do not have to be consecutive months. You could still suspend if there was a kit you maybe don't think you're interested in, or if you're just out of time and need to catch up, you can always suspend and you'll still get 6 no matter how long it takes you to get 6 if you buy 6. Does that make sense? So if you normally buy these prepaids, they have shipping of 11% in addition. If you subscribe month to month, you pay $25 plus tax if that's applicable in your area. Now, this includes shipping in that, so there's not 11% added. But if you do the prepaids, those do. And sometimes it makes sense. Say you need that to bump up to maybe some Stampin' rewards. That's also a benefit that you could get. My very favorite one to get is the 6th month. And let me share why. So on the 3 months, during free shipping day, it ends out $23.67 per month. So, some savings, which is great. But if you were to buy that when there's not free shipping, you'd pay $26.27. So a little more than month to month. So this one really doesn't make sense unless you're bumping up to get Stampin' rewards. The 6th month, however, when you do the prepaid, it ends up $21.75 plus tax if that's applicable in where you're purchasing from. So that's pretty good savings of, what is that, $3.25 each month. So you'll lock in that price for 6 Paper Pumpkin kits. Without the free shipping, it is still savings. So that's a good one. And then, of course, the 12-month is your most savings at $21 and $23.31 when there's not free shipping. So it's not too late. They will not run out of prepaid Paper Pumpkin subscriptions, although some things are out of stock. But these you can always get. By the way, if you get this $130, if you bump up just $20 more, you earn your Stampin' rewards as well. And also going on are the bonus days where you get a $5 coupon emailed to you to use in August. So you do get one for each $50. So when you get that email, take a screenshot, flag it, all that, because they can't resend that out to you. So don't lose that coupon code. Okay, if you have any questions about that, always reach out in the comments, or you can email me at robinstampsandscraps@gmail.com, and I'd be sure to help you with that. Now, I do have a host code, so if you plan to order today and your item is $150 or less, I would be grateful if you would use this host code, and then I can surprise you with a little gift. in August once I order my thank you gifts for those of you that have used this host code. All right, so here's our paper pumpkin kit. Now, I did learn they did have a refill that came out at midnight, and it sold out quickly. However, if you are tuned into my channel and make my alternatives as I show, you can get a total of 63 cards possible. So you probably don't want a refill for that. You'll have a ton of cards. So let me show you how to get the most out of your paper pumpkin kit. If you missed my first video, there will be a link in the ending credits of this video of where you can watch that. So don't miss that. That's been my favorite one so far. This one's cute too. And I'm not going to recreate the wheel. I really like the design I used on the first one. So I'm probably going to use those on the next two cards, but I'm going to show you what I did different to go along with each flower design. Changed it up just a little. So I'm going to share that with you today. I'm going to put this in my envelope. If you're new to my channel, I do have several new people. These little Velcro envelopes are part of what I call my favorite things. I am an Amazon affiliate. So in the video description box of this video and a lot of my past ones, there are a list of my favorite things. Now they are things that I use in my craft room to help me stay as organized as possible. I still lose things. I don't know why, but I really find them helpful, and a lot of you have too. So there are safe links to where you can get those products in my video description box. As an Amazon affiliate, I'm required to tell you I do get a few pennies back at no cost to you for recommending these products to you. So I hope you find those helpful, and thank you if you plan to use those or you've used those in the past. I really appreciate your support. All right, so this time we're going to use, I'm calling this the Daisy card base envelope and thing. And I put this here so I wouldn't forget. So going on now is August, and you could do that prepaid subscription, and that would start counting with this if you enter it in before the 10th. Don't miss this one. I've explained this a lot. There's even a on my blog, which is RobinsCreations.wordpress.com, of an additional picture showing another hint as to this kit. So don't miss that. All right, now we're back to this. So I've made myself some little instructions here of what we're going to do to cut the envelope so I didn't mess it up. And let's get out our trimmer. So if you plan to make these, you know, just watch through with me one time so you get an idea, and then go back, and that way you can pause and stop as you want to create these. So the first thing I do is I open up my envelope, and I do that by just cutting, a very small part, especially where this flower is. And I hope my blade is still sharp. It does help to have a super sharp blade. And as you can see, I barely cut any off of that side with the flower. So that's trash. And then the other side, you don't have to be as skimpy, but go ahead. It gives you the most paper. We're going to end up cutting it down anyway. Okay, so that opens up our envelope. And then there was no design on this side, which they sometimes do. But I've made enough cards that I'm okay with this. So for this, it helps if you're using a trimmer like this to go just inside the score line so you don't get fraying. All right, and that can be used to stamp off or test your stamps, whatever. Okay, so here is our envelope. You check my directions. We want to cut this at 4 inches. Okay, save that. And then I'm going to flip it over so I can see my flower. Now the flower I'm going to cut at 2 5/8. So here's your 2 mark. The smallest marks are your 16th marks. The next tallest are your 8ths. And then of course the third largest are your quarters. So we want to go over 5 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8. All right, and as I tell you always, if you're using this trimmer, actually a lot of trimmers, if your paper is lined up here, you're going to want to push the blade this way, because if you were to pull down. Let's just say you pulled down and you didn't have a good hold of your paper, it could slide and then you could get a crooked cut. So we don't want any crooked cuts. Now, if your blade gives you a little rough edge, actually we're going to trim the top of this, so that one doesn't matter. Let's see, trim the top to, actually it should already be 4 inches. Actually we do want to trim that to 3 7/8. Okay, because we're going to do a border with this. So we're going to make a card out of this. So save that. And then we're going to make a card out of this. Save this. And then we're going to work with the flap. Now, I have one done because I'm going to show you what I do. So I just start trimming a little part to get it flat. Okay, so now I have a square cut. And I want to go at like 2 inches. Okay, so that's a whole lot cut off. Just about all the glue. And then I'm going to cut this down. Try to go where it's going to be a point. Okay, and this one's actually it looks like a point. So let's see how big I got this time. Each time I get a little different. So this one is, let's make it an even 5 1/8. All right, that'll work for our another card. All right, then for the card base, you're just going to want to cut this at 4 1/8, and I've got a little hair of paper in my trimmer. Let me blow it out. That can sometimes cause fraying. Well, okay, I'll cut down here because that's not coming out. You're going to want to cut this at 4 1/8 inch. Okay, we may trim it down a little more, but that way you at least get your front and your back cut in half. And I'll show you what I did. I've already done this to help save time on the video, but I wanted to show you the cuts first. So I've brought in some favorite things. These aren't my favorite things like Amazon favorite things. These are my favorite Stampin' Up! Things. So these countryside corner dies work well. There are 7 in a pack and they all kind of nest on top of each other. If you're interested in this, the item number is 161471. This used to come in a bundle. They did discontinue the stamp set that went with this, but they kept the dies active or still available. So that's always good to know. All right, so I took the largest die and I lined it up just like this, much like I did on my first one, and cut that out. So let's go ahead and start with that card. I'm going to set all these goodies aside. I'm going to put them in one of my smaller favorite things so I don't lose those, as well as that card base, which I've already cut. Oh, this one, I'll explain that one when we get to it. All right. So let's put these away. All right, and then this. We're going to use this in a minute. That'll be the second card I show you. Okay, so let's start with that first card where I cut out the front. All right, what you're going to need is a thick white card base, which I pre-cut and score a bunch of them and store them in one of these envelopes. They work great for storing paper pumpkin, memories and more, your own scored card bases, things like that. So let's get out one of these. Seeing which way to score. All right, I like to use a bone folder to get a nice crisp line there. Helps it lay flat. And then I feel to see which side might be slightly taller or longer, which seems to be this side. So that's going to be this side up. Excuse me, that was loud. And then we're going to bring in that quarter cut. Okay, so this is that half of a card base cut with that largest countryside corners. I already forgot the name of them. Anyway, right here, and I did just cut it as close to the top as I could. And this does cut off the bottom of the stems, but I'm not worried about that. So we can trash that. I'm keeping with the same embossing folder, and this is the Dashing Designs embossing folder. There are some great new embossing folders, so if you've missed out on those in the new annual catalog, be sure and look, grab those up while it's free shipping. Okay, now here is what I did for this. So I brought in, when I saw this daisy type pattern, I thought automatically that back this year we had a daisy stamp, and this is the stamp right here. It was in March of 2024 called, I'm grabbing it over here. It was our bonus additional stamp set called Daisies for You, and there's this large daisy here. Now, if you are a Paper Pumpkin subscriber of mine, you know you get these sleeves to store your Paper Pumpkin stamp sets in. Most of the time they are smaller. Here's the original one, this size, and so I'll send that size, as well as this printout where you can keep your paper pumpkin stamps organized and save them to use over and over again. It's like we're going to do today. So I have a scan and cut, and so I use this to cut this die, and then I went in and used my X-Acto knife to cut in the center because I was going to do that. And then I thought even better would be to use vellum. That way you could see behind it. Now, as you can see, this one is dry. If you're going to stamp on vellum, you need to either take your heat gun to it or your let it dry overnight or for a few hours because it's going to be easy to smear it. So here it is right here, and so we're going to color that, and I'm going to use my Stampin' blends for that. I just had those out, like they had to be somewhere. Now, some of mine might be going dry. For this, I'm going to use the dark Daffodil Delight. I'm going to use the point in just so I don't go too far outside the lines. And then I'm going to use my dark Old Olive. Now, since this is vellum, I'm not going to worry about shading. I think I'm just going to use the dark. So let's go in and color this. Let me get out my Stampin' Pierce mat. Actually, that may bleed through. Let me get my silicone mat so we can see better what we're coloring. I haven't tried this with any other things like watercolor pencils or markers with the blender pen. I've just tried it with the blends. I still have to pick it up to see if I got it all. Okay, let's do this bigger leaf. I know my light Old Olive is getting a little low, so but since this is see-through, the dark isn't too dark. Anyway, by the way, there are different weights of vellum. I do have a thick vellum on part of my favorite things. And when you're looking at paper, oh, that's icky. I missed some spots. Let's do this on white so I can actually see what I'm doing. You want to look at what's called a GSM number. Yes, there is a weight. Usually we're used to seeing like a 65 pound, 90 pound. But however, based on the GSM, all those can be a different thickness. I don't know what that stands for or anything. I've just learned, I think, I forgot who told me, but you want to look at the GSM number. And the vellum that I have on my favorite things list is a like 160 something GSM, so I know it's going to be thick. All right. Let me get my blend marker. My big end is kind of shot. Let me just try to smooth that out a little bit till I'm happy. didn't have this much trouble coloring my first one. So, all right. I think that's going to be good enough. Okay. So I like the vellum because you can kind of still see through to this background. Now, if I didn't say, I do have this cut file. It'll cut the one with detail. There's a file for that. It's a zip file on my Etsy shop. You'll get one that cuts the detail, one that cuts not the detail, and one that cuts the little daisy, which we're going to use in a minute. And so I have that on my Etsy shop now. There are a few. Now, if you go there and they're not there, that means the ones I put out there sold out. I just do a limited quantity because I get charged every time it relists. So if it's gone and you would like that, then give me a comment or send me an email and I can add another one back out there. Now, if you happen to not get this stamp set, there is a current daisy stamp set called Cheerful Daisies. And it's right here. And I cut a few just so you could see what that would look like if you were to use that. So I just cut the little bitty daisies. And these cut as two. They're just barely attached. Actually, I think it cuts a whole big thing. Let's see how it... Well, it's just a separate die. But this is the stamp set. See if I have the dies over here. I do. So this cuts all three, and I just trimmed off the big one. It cuts this whole big one, and I just trimmed those from that. All right, so you could put your daisies on here. Okay, and then I did take that stem part and made some stems, but I'm just giving you the idea of if you don't have that, to cut these these very... Here's like a leaf you could add, and then the stems are under my finish card. All right, so you can cut like 3 of those and make your own little daisy scene. I kind of like that, but I wanted to go with paper pumpkins since a lot of you guys may already have this stamp set. And I really liked how the vellum turned out. So let me set that aside. All right, so we're going to adhere this straight on this piece. Now here's what I did to adhere it. I find that glue dots work best. I have some old glue dots from old kits that I'm going to use. And I have this here just so I can remember which is the front because, well, now you can kind of tell. But that one's the front. So let's put the glue dots on the back. Get my Take Your Pick tool, which I've used all day today. All right, and I'm going to put these right behind the daisy eye where it's colored. Okay, and then I'm going to put another one down here at the bottom. This one's kind of big. And the reason I'm going to do that is we're going to put a sentiment over that to hide the glue dot. I find these glue dots don't show bad through the vellum, so they're a good choice. Now you can kind of decide where you want this. I'm going to do it like that. Okay, isn't that cute? Now, you know me, I love embossing folders. I'm going to show you a different one that I used on my finish card. And actually, I forgot to color this before I put it on here. Let's see how it does. Always trial and error here. How it does if I try to color it now. Don't turn my camera. Sorry. Let's try a green. And I'm going to bring out my glass mat. By the way, this would be a great item to grab up on free shipping day. It's the Stampin' Up! Glass mat. It is my favorite now that it's come out. I'm just going to do a light coating. So this had some green on it, some garden green, not garden green, old olive. And I'm just using what's left because I want a light coloring. Not doing too bad. I thought maybe the bumps would really show, but since this is barely inked, I think it did a great job. All right, so let's adhere that to our card, and I'll get rid of this because it's going to has too much reflection of my lights. Just set it down there. We're going to adhere this to our card base, and I'm going to use the multi-purpose glue for this. Now, if you don't have vellum, I brought that one out just so you could see that would work as well. By the way, I have all kinds of cut files, so if there is a kit you're looking for and you would love a cut file, if you have a scan and cut for it, reach out to me and I can see if I made one that month, and then I can put that one out. Okay, so we're going to put this whole thing up on dimensionals, and I have an old sheet here, and I cut them in half. I find the halves are pretty good because these are the regular size. There are mini ones, and then you wouldn't have to cut them in half. That one really stuck to my finger. The backing came off. Let's just put some there in the center for support. All right, and let's put it right there. I really like that light shading of green to go with that. Now, if you had just the regular one, that's what it would look like. But I really like the vellum look. So that's what I'm going to go with. And then we're going to stamp our sentiment. Now, for this month's cut file, I made the cut file for the sentiments in our stamp set. So I have a whole little folder here of sentiments. I have stamped some already. I don't think I have any more of that one. Now the one we're going to use, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to show you that I cut it just a hair smaller as soon as I get that one out of the bag here. I may have to do a little dump and then one will show up. There you can see all my cuts. I have these stamped already. That's not one. That was for a different card I did. I think. Well, am I out of those? Hold on just a second. Let me see if I'm out of those. Okay, I am not out of those. They were just still in the bag. So I'm going to get out my stamp apparatus and I'm going to show you what I do. Now I have the other stamps that I've used on my previous cards here, and this plate's getting pretty full, but we're going to continue to use it. Let me get out my label template. Okay, it's right here. Now, to give you a tip, I wrote top and a little arrow here to know that this is what goes in the corner of my stamp apparatus. Now, if you're like me and you already have a bunch of things lined up on this, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to flip this over so it's kind of smooth. And then, sadly, I cannot buy any more. What am I thinking of? Oh, the deluxe mats, because this is discontinued. But I had some this little grid sheet that you could buy with this, and I laminated a bunch of them. So I could use it like on top of the black, much like it were a deluxe mat. I'm going to grab a magnet to hold this down. Now I do have so many stamps on here that it's going to stick. What I can do to help is put down some scrap like paper so it won't stick to all of them. But see, this is the one right here. Actually, I'm going to have to flip it back over, but let me show you. So I thought the one that came in the kit was way too big for the sentiment. So I made my cut file just a tad smaller. Can you see that? All right, and I think I have that on the flip side. Yes, I do. So since I line that one up with my negative of that, that's what we're going to use. Let me grab my little Memento ink. And let's make this one. Now, my magnet's in the way. All the others of my cut file will fit in the negative of the ones that came. You could use this and just kind of center it. I just went ahead and used a negative part. See how that stamping did. The B did not get inked very well. Now let's do another one, because that one I need to take my time and ink up the little piece. So that's the other good thing about having a scan and cut, is that you can make a whole bunch in case you mess up. All right, I know what I need. I need a stamp set or something to help hold up this side so it's flat. Okay, let's give it a good press in a second to absorb into the paper this time. Okay, and I like that one. We did much better. We can get rid of that one. Get my chamois. Clean that off. We'll be back to this again and again. All right, so my card is here. And we're going to use this Friends Like You. Now, I have some old retired ribbon. You could use, I think, what would be real pretty as an alternate if you don't have ribbon. I tend to grab it up on the clearance rack. This is not on clearance, but this would be real pretty on there. And this is the silver and white is what it's called, and its item number is 162149. But I have this old retired ribbon, and I'm just going to cut a little piece of it. Let me get my ribbon scissors, and let's just pretend like we're going to set it on there. Okay, and I'm going to use this kind of to set the ribbon on. Now, I do recommend glue dots. I have this old 3M tape runner that I'm going to use. And let me try to get those slashes about the same angle. Don't like that right there. All right, and then I'm just going to set this on the bottom. Just to kind of flag it. Now you could use the little pieces that they gave us in our kit also. All right, and then I'm going to adhere that there. So, and then add embellishment. So let me show you, oh, I forgot a butterfly. Now, in addition to free shipping, Stampin' Up! Discounted several paper pumpkin things under the refills and past subscriptions and whatnot. Several of those are sold out already, but I looked before this video and the butterfly one from April was still available. And it has this beautiful stamp right here. It also had the a butterfly which cut out this stamp, a die in the add-on dies, as well as a detail. Now, you can, if you get that kit, I have many videos on alternates for that. I think I made like 50 something cards with that kit, but I used my cut file for the butterflies. And one difference that you'll see is that it didn't cut the little tail off. For some reason, their die in the add-on dies cut the little tail off. I have a whole envelope of those over here that I pre-cut. Okay, right here. So my cut file will have the little bitty flower, flower. Little bitty butterfly. And I'll also have this big one. Now the die itself didn't give this little notch right there for the butterfly, but my cut file does. So if that's something that's you're interested in, that is also on my Etsy shop. I did add that back. And same thing, if it goes away, I can always redo one. Just send me a message or a comment. So I'm going to use this butterfly this time since it's part of a paper pumpkin stamp set. And it is the full kit that I saw, so you can get the stamps with that. And I think it's a great butterfly, both the big and the large. And so then I'm going to color it. Let's just color this one yellow. There is such thing as a yellow butterfly. I always look up on Google, like when I pick a color, and there was a pretty butterfly that was yellow. This is the dark daffodil delight. And then it had like a black outside piece. So I have the light basic black that I'm going to use on this just to give it some detail. Just go along the edges of its wings. Something like this. No real And then I always like to take a bone folder and bend the wings upwards, kind of curl it before I attach it on here. So then when I attach, I just like to put liquid glue on the body. All right, so he's going to be coming in the scene there. Also cute would be the brass butterfly embellishments that are available. And now I can show you the one I did ahead of time, and I'll tell you the differences. So for this one, I used the Spotlight on Nature butterfly that was with that one, and then I added basic rhinestone jewels. This piece is actually vellum. Can you see that? Kind of see through it? That I colored and then embossed. Actually, there's not a whole lot of difference in that. I can see it. It shows more in person than it probably does on camera. And of course, I didn't glue that down yet. So that's my first alternative with the daisies. So let me know what you think about that. And let's put those away. Now, my favorite thing to do with the other piece that went on this card was mount this to some vellum. All right, and I'm going to do this one much like I did the very first one. So let's get out my goodies for it. All right, again, I kept with the same embossing folder just to make things easy. And I need another thick white card base. Let's score it. All right, and then feel to see if there's one this side. All right, this is where we're going to use that envelope piece that we cut earlier. We're going to use the one that doesn't have the flower on it. It has the flower. Okay, now in my last card, I put this on the bottom like that and then put this here. I thought just to do something different, that it looked nice just like that, where you could see it would more highlight the flower. So I need to trim a little vellum that's sticking out. I didn't get it square on there. You probably can't see it in the video, but it's there. Now it's gone. All right. Oh, and this vellum, by the way, is the best thing I did was measure the piece of the rectangle, and so it's 3.75 by 2.5. So that's the piece of vellum that I put behind here. And I know this is not quite symmetrical, like it's wider than it is tall, and I don't like that edge. Let me take my finger and smooth it down with my fingernail. So we're going to adhere that to this. And again, I'm going to use glue dots, and that way I can stick them where they're not going to show on the back of the flower. So let's add several of those. I probably could have done this ahead of time. You know what? I'll speed this through and cut this part out, and I'll get back to you. You won't know I cut it out. Okay, so I put several glue dots around and took the backing off. And I'm just going to center this on here. And I actually like that it's not quite right because it still gives some backing to these daisies right here. All right, so we're going to set this on our embossing piece. But first I wanted to add some ribbon. Now, once again, I'm real disappointed that lately there has not been ribbon a lot of colored ribbon except for the in color. I grabbed stuff up when it's on the clearance rack. Again, the silver would work fine for this, but I'm going to use this garden green twine that I have. But stick around because I'm going to show you my ribbon saving technique if you haven't seen it before. So I have an old bottle of Arlene's Tack It Over and Over, something like that. So if you want to make sure it's going to fit, you would take a tape measure and tape around. And it needs to at least be 4 1/8. All right. There's some technical stuff you have to do, but I know this one works. This helps me make sure my ribbon is tight and I don't tear my card bases. So I just go like that. This is always harder to do while I'm recording than when I'm not. All right, and then I make a little loop, go around the back, push that through, and then tighten. You just have to watch this one that it doesn't slip through. All right, and then this one you can shorten. I like a little bitty tiny bow. It's just my preference on that. So that's nice and tight. So you can see I haven't even cut it off the spool yet. And now I'm going to cut it and slip it off my glue bottle. Now I want this bow to be more on the left hand side. So if I wanted it in the center, I would cut this loop right there. But I want my bow further over. So I'm going to cut it about here. Let's hope I left enough room to tie it on the back. I could have gone more, but I think I have enough room. So let's slip this around the back. And for time's sake, I'm just going to use Scotch tape. I know a lot of people are afraid the Scotch tape is going to dry up. I haven't had that problem, but you can go with tear and tape as well on the back of that. And if you want to make sure you get it kind of even, I put it on my grid paper. And then put this around the back. So that helps me tie my bows as well as save ribbon. So I hope if you haven't seen that before that was a nice tip for you. And then we're going to put this on with dimensionals after we put this on our card base. So let's grab out the multi-purpose glue again. So which do you like better if you saw my first one? Do you like it with the this at the bottom or behind that one? I just want to do something different with this one. Center that up. That's why I like the multi-purpose glue. Gives me a second to scoot it the way I want it. All right, and then back with the dimensionals. This was such a pretty kit. I was looking forward to it for such a long time, and it did not disappoint. I think next month is going to be fun with all the birthdays. All right, let's put that there. And then the sentiment I used, you can choose. I'm going to go with this one that I already have, and I'll show you the finished one. I would adhere that on. Actually, I'll probably go with the one I have my finished one on. It's right here. I did the You're Simply the Best because it tucked in nice and neat over here. I did add another butterfly, but you saw me do that ahead of time. So I will color him and add that one there. So this is my second. There's going to be 7 again, much like my first alternatives. So like I said, I just like doing it a little bit different. I'm going to put my butterfly in here to color later. All right. Then I'm going to use the envelope piece. So again, we need a thick card base. Okay, and I've already adhered a emboss layer to that for time saving sake. And then we need the envelope piece that we cut earlier. Here it is. Okay, and then I brought in a piece of Daffodil Delight that I cut one. Oh, I may have to trim off the top some. So, yep, I did it a little too high. So let me get out my trimmer. Let's see, we trimmed this to, I think, 7/8. And, yep, I need to trim just a hair off the top. You always want your trimmer to be flat. So if you have anything underneath it, remove that. Just so I can make sure it's going to be the right cut, which I need to do it down here because I have a piece of fuzz up there. I believe it's going to be 4. Whoops, that's the score line blade. Okay, so the yellow piece is 4 by 7/8. I have a little fuzzy on the envelope part. Okay, and we're going to adhere this to this Daffodil Delight piece. So with the envelope paper, which is very thin, you do not want to put too much glue on it. That's why I like this fine tip glue bottle. It helps control the amount of glue that comes out at once. And just going to wiggle that around till it's about in the center. Try not to wiggle the table. All right, and then I'm just going to adhere that right on here. On the left-hand side. Kind of center that up with the white edge that's around the emboss layer. And then I brought in, like I said, I used that daisy stamp back from March. I love that little guy. Now, if you don't have that kit, I did go ahead and color a little yellow flower from this kit. If you wanted to do that, you could do that if you don't have that one. But I have the little daisy, so I'm going to put him up on with dimensionals. Put one on the big flower part and one on the leaf. I might can do another little one. I use this little piece just so the flower doesn't collapse on me. I love when I'm able to bring back in the paper pumpkin stamps. It really shows the value you get from these kits. All right, and then I have a butterfly here that I've already colored. I used yellow and peach pie, isn't that the name of it? Just to bring in some of that peach color. So let's adhere him down, because it could be a she, but let's adhere the butterfly down. And then we can do a sentiment. So I like that sentiment across there. Let's go ahead and put that on with dimensionals as well. Okay, and then I'll show you my finished one and what I did different with it. Then we can add some embellishments, but here is my finished one, and I have the measurement there for me on it. I also took that spritzer, it's back here. I did look on Amazon, and they don't sell, it's unavailable, but you can put your marker through there and do a little spritzing. I probably should have masked my flower, but can you see the difference? That one's spritzed, and this one is spritzed, and this one is not. So that's just something you could do. I didn't put a sentiment on this one yet. I just wanted to make sure I like the layout of it. So here is my third card. Three, 5, 6. Trying to decide. Okay, now we have the envelope side that we would take off the adhesive on. Now, I haven't done that yet, so I'm just going to show you what I did for this card. So that envelope piece that we trimmed down right here, if you have any lick and stick parts still left, you're going to want to take a damp paper towel, okay, and then get like a silicone mat or something and rub that off. You could also use your glass mat. Kind of just go over that until you get all the adhesive off, and then with a dry towel to help it dry, then you'll need to let that dry, okay? Which I've already done with this one. So I'm just going to show you. I put that on the embossed piece. I had some ribbon that I tied all around the embossed piece, okay? And then I brought in my favorite dies of the new catalog. So if I could only get, I said this in my first video, one bundle set out of the new catalog, it would be the Spotlight on Nature. And it has these beautiful dies. There's a set of 12. They come on 2 different things. So 6 on this side, 6 on this. All right, so I cut that out, and I wanted to add some color to this card. So I took Calypso Coral with a blending brush, and I blended this circle right here. So it doesn't matter if you're a little messy on the inside because you're pretty leaves and flowers. So these are the leaves from the add-on dies for this month. I think I have them over here, called something Celebrate. I think they're over by my die machine. But anyway, they're the ones for this quarter. I love these detailed leaves with the cutouts and the embossing on them. And then, of course, the flower. It's great that we have a die to cut that thing out. So that is the, which one is that one? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. And the last 3, I did all the same, pretty much like the first ones, just with some different colors. So let's get out the supplies for it. I'll do that one with you. We have a thick white card base. Time got away again on this one. All right. Now, I did do some pre-blending, and then that same daisy stamp has a splatter right here that I used to splatter around the edges of that one. Okay, and because I knew this would probably be a long video again, I pre-colored my flowers this time, so you didn't have to sit there and watch me painfully color. Now, this was the left side of the card base from the kit, and you can cut it at 4. Well, we cut it at 4 1/8 already, and then you can get 3 pieces by cutting it 1 7/8 twice, and then you're left with about 1.75, something like that. So we're going to make 3 cards using that for a total of 7 again. And of course we have 3 card bases. So with each set so far, if you wanted to make all 3 of these this way, you would have 21 daisies. I was like, do I do something different? And I really like those so much that I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep with the same design, see what other supplies I can bring in to make them just a little different, but keep the same type of format. Again, this is just some retired ribbon that I have. And for speed, I'm going to use my big old 3M tape gun that I've had since I started crafting over 20 years ago. All right, add this behind the back, and we'll hope I got it straight. Okay, then we can put this on our card base. Tell you what, time got away again, didn't it? But we are doing 7 cards again, so we're getting the bang for our buck on this kit. And like I said, I just brought in some ribbon and mostly white, so you don't need a whole lot. Well, of course the dies, but that's how I make the paper pumpkin avid. A lot of people say, oh, paper pumpkin's just for simple, but I like to show how you can really expand the kit and get a whole lot. Now I already put glue dots on the back of these. Now these I cut from white cardstock and then went over in a blending brush, and that's how I got the varying shades of this one. When I show you my other 2 that are complete already, I'll show you that I used cardstock on those, but I really like the look of this, so I wanted to show how I do that. Now you may want to kind of work with it here on your card. That way you know if you're going to run off the side. You don't want it to hang off so you can't get it in the envelope. And I already did put glue dots on the back of these, so I could not take too much of your time. All right, let's put him high. And let's take off this backing. And I'll show you the other ones I colored with different colors, just so they're not all the same. With the green, we were pretty open to what color we could use. All right, and then let's bring that down and bring this flower so he doesn't cover that flower. Something like that. And then we're going to raise this with dimensionals. About out of cut ones again. I've gone through a whole lot of dimensionals. They're my favorite thing to add detail to my cards. Very simple, just to raise it up. Gives it that extra little pump. Okay, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put this one up high. And then you can put your sentiment here. This is not stamped, but I'll just show you. You could do one of those. I'm not going to put a sentiment yet. I'll show you my other 2 that I did. So this one I did with Daffodil Delight. And these are some embellishments that I had still to finish using up. And this one I did in the Peach Pie. So, and I did a sentiment from Layering Leaves. It's one of my favorite sentiment stamp sets. And I don't even remember, is that the new Labeled Love? Yep, that's the new Labeled with Love. Now this one you can choose as a bundle with dies, or there's a punch. So I chose the dies because they don't take up that much space to store, and I've got quite an arsenal here. So this is my 5th, 6th, 7th card. So thanks for joining me, everyone. I can switch back to me. About had an hour again. Did I go? Nope, not yet. Wrong screen. There I am. So thanks everyone for joining me. I hope you're enjoying this kit and making lots of these alternatives. If you do make them, let me know that you like to case these cards. I really like seeing that and from where you're watching from. So until my next video, which will probably be the last one on this kit unless I just do some alternates with the stamp set, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll link the first video in the end credits of this, as well as a subscribe button and a shop button to my online store. So don't miss out on the free shipping. It ends today, July 23rd, 2024 at 11:59 Mountain Time. So go grab your goodies while it's still free shipping, which is 11% savings. So thanks everyone for joining me. I hope you have a great evening. Bye-bye.